Hello boys and girls, it's Kit Bowman here, your favourite video creator and a friend. So if you might recognise me already from my previous videos, so thank you so much for you joining me on a brand new video. So if you welcome back to my channel and some new faces and returning subscribers as well as. Okay, so I'd like to thank you for subscribing to my channel and leaving comments. You guys are so awesome, and I'd like to appreciate you, really appreciate you guys. There's such amazing support, and I do apologise for keeping your rating a bit overwhelmed lately. Okay, so I'll be doing another read-aloud video. Some of you are quite interested in tonight. I've got a Disney storybook version. I have got Disney's Peter Pan Return to Neverland. It's a sequel to original 1953 classic Disney film Peter Pan. This is published by Disney's Wonderful World of Reading. It's in a nice hardcover. It's got Peter and Jane in the Neverland, flying in the Neverland. Some of you are interested. Okay, so let's have a go read this storybook. So feel free, if you once it's finished the video, you can write your comments down below and give thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Okay, so remember, if you want to wear your headphones when you listen to me when I read to you. So headphones I highly recommend. Sit back, relax and enjoy. And let's begin. Once upon a time, a girl named Wendy met a magical boy named Peter Pan. He took her to the wondrous place called Neverland, where no one ever grows up. When Wendy returned home, she promised, always believe in you, Peter Pan. Years passed. Wendy grew up, but she never forgot her promise. Every night, Wendy told her two children stories about Peter Pan, the Lost Boys, and a tiny fairy named Tinkerbell. Wendy's daughter, a serious 12-year-old named Jane, had no use for make-believe, but her brother, Danny, loved hearing the stories again and again, especially the one about Captain Hook and the treasure. Captain Hook and his men stole treasure from the other ships. They kept their loot on the ship for Jolly Roger. One night, Peter Pan and the Lost Boys stepped aboard for Jolly Roger and stole Hook's treasure. It was all just a great game for Peter. Peter and Hook had a long, fierce sword fight. Eventually, Peter and the Lost Boys boys escaped with the treasure. Then Tinkerbell showered the pirate ship with the pixie dust, which made the Jolly Roger float off into the sky. You have no seen the end of me, Peter Pan. I'll get you for this if it's the last thing I do. Captain Hook shouted as he drifted away. Hook never win as long there is faith, trust in pixie dust, Wendy said. As she ended her story for the night, Danny was delighted, but not Jane. She thought, was all just childish nonsense. Peter Pan isn't real. People don't fly. They do too, cried Danny. Oh, Daniel, grow up, Jane said, and went to her room. Jane laid down on a seat next to the window. After a while, she fell asleep. While she slept, something strange happened in the sky outside. A surprise visitor appeared. It was someone she never ever expected to see. Jane awoke to see Captain Hook standing next to her. Hello, Wendy, Hook said wickedly, thinking Jane was her mother. Before Jane could explain, Captain Hook ordered his first mate, Mr. Smee to put her into a sack bag. My apologies, miss, Smee said as he tied the sack. Hook and Smee took Jane aboard the Jolly Roger and headed back to Neverland. Hook had a plan to trap Peter Pan once and for all. With Wendy as bait, we shall lure Peter Pan to his doom. Hook bragged to Smee. As luck would have it, just as a pirate ship arrived in Neverland, Peter Pan and Tinkerbell appeared. Hook's men fired a cannonball at Peter. Of course they missed. So Hook pointed to the hanging sack. He boasted that he had captured Wendy and planned to feed her to an octopus that lurks in the water below. "Let her go, you black-hearted scoundrel," commanded Peter as he and Hook began a sword fight. "You want her? Ha! Well, go and get her," Hook shouted. Captain Hook raised his sword and cut the rope holding the sack. To Peter's horror, the sack dropped into the water. Bravely, Peter dived into the water to save his friend. Tinkerbell followed close behind. Peter might need her help. Captain Hook and the pirates peered eagerly over the side of the ship. After a short while, Peter's hat gobbled up to the surface. Minutes later, when Peter didn't appear, Captain Hook shouted triumphantly, I did it, I'm free of Peter Pan forever." But Hook's cheering was cut short. Out of the water rose Peter Pan and Tinkerbell. Peter flew away with a sack in his arms. Tinkerbell sprinkled pixie dust onto the giant octopus, causing it to rise high above the Jolly Roger. Then Tinkerbell abruptly stopped sprinkling pixie dust. The octopus landed on the top of Captain Hook with a loud crash. Hook yelled as the bees started to pull him over the other side of the ship. The hungry octopus was very happy to have caught a Captain Hook dinner, but the captain wasn't so happy about being a dinner. "Smee!" Hook yelled. Smee grabbed Captain Hook's hand. Smee and the octopus pulled in opposite direction. Finally, with a mighty yank, Smee wrenched the hook out of the octopus's arms. The two pirates flew through the air and fell into a cargo hold. Smee had saved Hook, but the captain wasn't at least a bit grateful. "Mr. Smee, be a good fellow and fix the plank, please," Hook growled. "So make you walk it!" Meanwhile, Peter and Tinkerbell flew to safety. Peter gently placed the sack on the ground and began to untie it. He couldn't wait to see his old friend Wendy. But when Peter opened the sack, pow! Thinking she was still a prisoner of the pirates, Jane had let a loose terrific punch. "Ow! You sure you're not Wendy?" Peter said, rubbing his jaw. Just then, Hook fired a cannonball at them. Peter flew off with Jane in his arms. "If you're not Wendy, who are you?" Peter asked. "I'm her daughter, Jane," the girl replied. As they flew over Neverland, Jane was amazed at all the sights below her. Suddenly, Peter stopped flying and dropped Jane into the hollow tree trunk. She slid down a very long chute. Jane landed at the bottom of the underground tree house where Peter lived with the Lost Boys. Nibs, Slightly, the twins Cubby and Tootles dropped down from the ceiling to greet her. This is Jane. Peter told the boys she's gonna stay here, be our new mother, and tell her stories. The Lost Boys gathered around Jane excitedly, but Tinkerbell wasn't so pleased. She wanted Jane to go home. Tinkerbell didn't want her to share Peter's attention. Let's play the game, said Nibs. How about treasure hunt? Peter suggested, but Jane didn't want to pay. No, 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 Jane shouted. I have to go home, Jane told them and stomped off. What's the matter with her? Asked Cubby. Peter scratched his chin and thought hard. I don't know, he said. She acts kind of like a grown-up. Ew, said the Lost Boys. Peter followed Jane and Sue found her building a raft so that she could sail home. He watched as Jane pushed a raft into the water, jump on board, but she didn't get far. Almost immediately, the raft began to break up and sink. Jane fell into the water with a big splash. When he saw she was in trouble, Peter flew out to save Jane. The only way out of here is to fly, Peter explained. Then set her down on the top of the ledge. Anybody can do it, Peter assured her. All it take was faith, trust in pixie dust. But Jane refused to believe she could fly, so Tinkerbell sprinkled some pixie dust on the Lost Boys, and they glided in the air around her to show her how it worked. Then Peter asked Tinkerbell to sprinkle Jane with pixie dust too, but Tinkerbell didn't want to do anything to help Jane. She thought that Peter liked Jane too much. Peter knew just how to persuade Tinkerbell. Gosh, if Jane can't fly home, I guess you have to move in with us, he whispered to the tiny fairy. Tinkerbell didn't like the idea at all, so she sprinkled Jane with lots and lots of pixie dust, but all the dust just made Jane sneeze. Now Peter was sure that Jane could fly, so nudged her off the ledge. But Jane didn't have a faith and trust she needed to fly. Ah! Jane cried as she fell. The Lost Boys tried to catch her, but they missed. Jane landed in the soft ground with a thud. Jane was terribly angry and upset. Leave me alone, she cried. I don't believe any of this, and I especially don't believe in fairies. As Jane stomped away, Tinkerbell began falling towards the ground. She could no longer fly, and her light was fading. Peter knelt down to hear what Tinkerbell was saying. A worried Peter told the Lost Boys, if we don't get Jane to believe in fairies, Tink's light is going to go out. The group sped off to find Jane. Meanwhile, Jane came upon Captain Hook, who was weeping miserably. He told her that Peter Pan had stolen his treasure, but Hook needed to sail home to his mother. Captain Hook promised to take Jane home if she helped him find the treasure. Jane agreed, and he gave her a whistle to signal him. When she found the treasure, Jane didn't know it, but she had been tricked into Captain Hook's plan to capture Peter Pan. Soon, Jane meets up with Peter and the Lost Boys. Jane, I'm awful sorry, Peter said. We want to do something to make up to you. We want you to feel like you are one of us. Well, Jane said, why don't we play treasure hunt? That's a great idea, said Peter, but you have to think like a lost boy and have fun like a lost boy. Jane couldn't remember the last time she had so much fun. Eventually, Jane discovered the treasure. Then she remembered Hook's whistle. Jane realised that she didn't want to betray her new friends, so she threw the whistle away. Unfortunately, Toodles saw the shiny whistle, picked it up and blew it loud. No, wait, no! Jane cried out, but it was too late. Captain Hook and the pirates heard the whistle and in no time captured Peter and the Lost Boys. Hook thanked Jane. I couldn't have done it without you, he told Jane. You're a traitor, Jane, Peter shouted angrily. Because you don't believe in fairies, takes place is going out. Hook told Peter and the Lost Boys back to his ship. This time, he wasn't going to let Peter get away. Jane needed Tinkerbell's help, but she found the tiny fairy very weak. Jane started to cry. I'm so sorry, she said. But because she did believe in fairies. Then something magical happened. Tinkerbell's light started to flicker. Soon, the fairy's light was shining brighter than ever before. Jane and Tinkerbell arrived at the Jolly Roger just in a nick of time. They easily outwitted Hook, especially when Tinkerbell sprinkled Jane with pixie dust and Jane flew away before Hook could capture her. Then, just after Jane freed Peter, Hook made another attempt to grab her. Gotcha! Hook bellowed as he swung on the rope towards her. But Peter swiftly grabbed his dagger, and cut a rope. Hook fell into the water and onto Octopus. Smee! Yelled Hook as he tried to escape. Let's hear it for Jane, the one and only lost girl. The Lost Boys shouted. Peter looked sad. You can fly home now. You can't go home, he told Jane. I miss you, Jane admitted, but now I have great stories to tell. What about Peter Pan and the Lost Boys? So Peter and Tinkerbell and Jane flew back to Jane's home in London. At the time, Jane and her family were very happy to be united. Jane told her mother and Danny about adventures in Neverland, about pirates and treasure, the giant octopus, Tinkerbell, and especially Peter Pan. Peter saw that his old friend Wendy was now a grown-up. You have changed, he told her. Not really, not ever, Wendy answered. Wendy would always believe in Peter Pan, and now Jane would too. The end. So, I hope you like this storybook adapted version of Peter Pan Return to Neverland. So, I hope you love it so far. So, some of you like original 1953 animated classic Peter Pan. Would you prefer original Peter Pan or even Return to Neverland? I do like original 1953 Peter Pan. Yeah, okay, so that's it for all, guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video. So don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification. You can also check out my social media from the video description down below. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, TikTok, and my Facebook page. If you want to support my exclusive contents, or especially for ones like story highlights on Instagram, you can also support me there. That'd be really appreciate you guys. Very fortunate. Okay, guys, so please stay tuned on another next video. So have a nice day.